Wow, the power of the bell. Okay, thanks for coming back, everyone. I'm not going to get everyone to tell us what they're going to do, but rest assured I'll be following you up over morning tea about those actions. I'll ask you all individually. So, yeah, looking forward to actually making some of the things that we're talking about into action rather than just talking about them. And I'm sure that you're ready and willing to do that and excited about that. Look, it's my great pleasure to introduce Dan Corrie, who is Program Manager here at GIoCT. Dan has an amazing set of skills. He manages to get people to places with kind of calmness and ease, but also a deep understanding of technology and kind of the ways technology can help us in teaching and learning. And he's going to talk today a little bit about some of the ways that GIoCT is engaging with the app-based platform and what we're doing there. So over to you, Dan.
Thank you very much, Michael. Did that wake everybody up? The sound of bubbles. So I have the pleasure today of introducing PokeC, GIoCT's new app that we'll be using to try and inspire creativity across the world. We've heard a lot about the challenges educators face in the implementation of creativity into their teaching. However, one key piece of feedback that we keep hearing is that educators simply do not have time to plan for creativity in education. So how do we inspire ideas in a very short time? Maybe 10 minutes, 5 minutes between class, or just before the conference now? Well, PokeC is our new tool to try and help educators solve this problem. So what actually is the app? What is PokeC? Pocket Creativity. The key features of the app are it's a platform that will help educators communicate across the world at all levels. It's also a database of case studies of creativity from around the world. And most importantly and most excitingly, it's an AI tool that will help generate original, usable teaching materials that will inspire creativity. So exploring international case studies will be a foundational part of the app, which will help people find inspiration in an instant. If you're trying to plan for a PBL lesson and you're trying to incorporate 2 lesson plans, just have a quick search, click on the bubbles, and you'll get case studies that are relevant to what you're trying to teach. Furthermore, you'll be able to personalize, make notes, and also comment on other people's case studies as well. It will be a global community of educators, and we hope to see that people support, share data, and share research on the case studies that are implemented in the app. What we really want to see is a global community of people interested in furthering the cause of creative thinking, and we really think this technological solution is one way that we can do that. So case study collection is our primary part of the app, and this is really to serve as instant inspiration. You probably see these, and you'll see these at 11 o'clock today, the case studies that we've got around. And you can see from a brief interaction with the posters and the people that we'll be presenting today, you can see how that sparks inspiration. If we can do that on a global scale through a technological solution, then I think that will be a really big game changer in the world of creative thinking. The most exciting part of the app is the PokeC AI tool. So this, with a simple prompt, will allow teachers to input an easy request, and from there, the app will output usable media, text, images, and video that will allow a teacher to easily plan and then easily inspire their children through creative thinking in the classroom. This is a really brief introduction to the app, and we're really excited to share more with you in 2024. If you do have any questions, I invite them during the break time or during the lunchtime, and I'm really happy to share this with you. Thank you very much. I'll pass back to Michael.
Thanks, Dan. Very exciting, and really looks like it will be a wonderful resource for teachers. So thanks for explaining that to us today. Now, this session is such a privilege to moderate because it is actually about the kind of work I'm so interested in. It's about the how. It's about the how we do creativity and creativity learning in our schools, in our communities. And we've got probably one of the most inspiring panels that I've seen in a long time to talk about this. I'm going to introduce them all to you as they speak. and they're going to do 10-minute presentations. Then we're going to have a discussion about some of the things that they bring up. But so Szilvia, Németh, Wei Zhong and Richard Dunn are going to speak to us today on the panel. Their approaches and their ideas and the kind of work that they're doing is really diverse, so I hope you are able to make some of those connections between them. Szilvia Németh is the Managing Director of T-Tudok Centre for Knowledge Management and Educational Research in Budapest. She holds an MPhil degree in education from the University of Cambridge, and she's led and participated in various national and international research projects focusing on equity in education and on equal access to quality education of Roma. So she comes to us with an incredible kind of history of work in this area. So could you please make Szilvia welcome?
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm also appreciate the invitation because we have been working in OECD's project for fostering creativity and critical thinking. So I hope that somehow this input will be extremely interesting for you as well. So I will talk about an international collaboration on developing learning competencies by creative interventions. This is a project supported by Erasmus+, but it has long history before this project, and this is a collaboration between Norwegian, English, and Hungarian partners. So the first, it's not working. Okay. So what is this project and why is it important to share it with you? It is about understanding that how learning through arts in school affects the learning competencies of the students. And it is done by designed lesson plans which address curriculum needs, incorporates executive functions of the brain, and it is set in a holistic arts-based framework and puts teachers and artists side by side in the classroom. I have to say that our approach is very similar to the creative partnerships approach, which we have been using for 10 years now in Hungary and in a Central European region. And the main idea of this approach is what we call a pedagogy of high-functioning classroom. This is very similar to what Biddulph just explained as a kind of creative thinking framework. And this project also used this methodology. So in this methodology, teachers and artists work together in the classroom, and this is very close to the idea of what yesterday Hillary explained, that rewidening the school. We try to create an immediate and ultimate hub to schools, especially for those schools who are disadvantaged, and not just in disadvantaged regions, but also working with disadvantaged children, especially in Hungary with Roma and immigrant children. The next one. The main aim of this Art of Learning project is to develop executive functions by creative interventions, and by executive functions, which are the basic learning competencies like working memory, inhibitory control, and cognitive flexibility. And we know that these are those multiple functions that work together, and they are essential for learning. So we try to create this project based on previous researches, especially I would highlight Adele Diamond's researches, and there is a hypothesis which we try to test in this project, that arts and culture activities are best fit for the developing executive functions. So the hypothesis you will see here, if it works. Yes, it's in Norwegian, and the next one should be in English. Okay, so we try to create activities for this project which engage physically, socially, emotionally, and intellectually children. So these are active, inquisitive activities, repeated ones, and I would say that the third criterion is the most important, that children in this project, they take risks. and we try to make them larger than themselves. So it is somehow a kind of set of challenging activities, and these activities were not just delivered but also tested and evaluated in the project. CC, like Creativity, Culture and Education, in 2016 had this kind of slide about interconnectedness of executive functions and creative habits of mind. So this 5-element structure that creativity is a kind of being disciplined, imaginative, persistent, inquisitive and collaborative. And research showed that if we would like to develop the executive functions of the children, we should do activities based on these developing these creative habits of mind. So this is a kind of interconnectedness between these two blocks. And we tested this, and this test was supported by a pilot from Norway in 2019. May I change it? Okay, and based on the quantitative and qualitative findings, we also developed a kind of research model for this project. And doing research in this field is extremely important because it is very rare, and we try to support with evidences all these projects. Sorry. Okay. So if I would say that what is the leading idea behind this project and the research work as well, I would quote this quotation that this project is based on the children being inquisitive, and this is the type of learning we want our children to experience. And we also involved in focus groups children, saying what kind of activities they would like to have, and we still build the activities and also the research part on the ideas of children. So you see here some of the learning situations. These are much frontal in the pictures, but in reality and in everyday practice, this is much more informal and much more children-led. So these are just the key numbers that 500 students took part in this project in 17 primary schools in Norway and Hungary with 11 artists and 40 teachers. And we hope that this is not just a project for 2 years, but also this will be a long-term partnership between teachers and artists. So in this project, artists and teachers work together on a regular basis for 48 weeks. And it is a long time for children as well, because 3 times a week for 90 minutes they do the activities. So this is a really intensive course, and 4 rounds of testing about the development of their executive functions is happening during the project. The last one, so these are the partners, and the last part of the testing will take place in next spring. So all the qualitative results will be present and published by the end of next June. So we hope that we will be able to gather evidence for the sentence that creativity can develop executive functions and learning skills of children, and it is a kind of best way of doing that. And finally, I think the innovative nature of this project can be also highlighted by showing its research methodology, because in this project we used a so-called yellow-red test of SEDETI, which is a research institute in Chile. And the idea behind using this yellow-red game-based test was to see that what kind of executive functions can be measured, and how these kind of executive functions are developed during this project. And if I can, I will show you just one preliminary result from by using these research instruments. And this is and this stage, we are just analyzing the individual results of children, and there is just one results of a child. She is coming from a very deprived environment. She is living in the segregated Roma community part of a countryside Hungarian village. Could you just help me with this?
There you go.
That now it's...
Another one?
No? Okay. So this is a girl coming from a very deprived community, and if you see her results in cognitive flexibility measured by this red and yellow test or yellow and red test, it is visible that compared with the control students, her development is much better than of the control students, and this is a quotation from her, that I found out that I can do anything because this lesson showed me that I didn't know how to create things like that before, but now I know how to do that. And also we can say that there are other individual really good results, and after June we will see that what is the research evidence for this project. So as a kind of last slide for my presentation about the conclusions, we have done focus groups with children in Norway and in Hungary, and also made semi-structured interviews with artists and teachers, and we can make now a kind of midterm conclusion that children prefer complicated and demanding activities at school. They are ready for challenges, and teachers, after this experience supported by artists, they are much braver to try new things. Teachers have seen improvements as a result of a regular practice. So Adele Diamond's idea that regularity and practice should be one of the bases for development is true from the results of the interviews. And what I would say that it is just the most or the biggest experience of us that the language competencies and language skills of children are extremely high compared with the control groups. So language competencies and vocabulary of pilot children far exceed that of the control students. And as a kind of final sentence, I would say that we have a web page where all the activities you can check, and I highly recommend you to look at this web page and try some of the activities which are also interconnected with the pedagogical activity bank of the OECD toolkit. So somehow the methodology of this art of learning activities, the creative partnerships activities, and also the toolkit for OECD are overlapping and following the very similar methodology as Bill just explained to us or introduced. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Szilvia. And just looking at that research, it's so exciting to see research that actually impacts on teachers' practice. And many of the things in those conclusions are things that we say to each other all the time, but to have a research basis behind it is just amazing for advocates, for educators, for leaders. It's such a gift to the field. So thank you for your work, and I'm very excited to see its growth. Now, Wei Jun is at TsingHua University in China. He's an assistant professor in the Department of Education. He's got a Doctor of Philosophy and Educational Psychology from the Chinese University of Hong Kong. And his research mainly concerns how socialisation processes, that is parenting and teacher practices, and personal attributes, self-concepts, self-worth and self-regulation, influence young people's academic and emotional functioning. He also looks at interpersonal and intrapersonal factors affecting young people's college adjustment. So please welcome Wei Jun.
Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you, Michael. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. I feel really honored. Good morning, everyone. So I feel really honored to attend this OECD summit and introduce some creative thinking projects in China. So from the national policy level, so China is putting more emphasis on than ever on cultivating the innovative and creative talents through education, and they are the driving force for the sustainable development and modernization of China and at this new age. So we believe one of the basic strategies is through science and education to stimulate students' interest for exploring the unknown and cultivate their creative and critical thinking. So in this aspect, a Chinese city named Shanghai, which is an international and developed city, and is also called the Paris of East, is playing a leading role in the promoting creativity thinking in education. So particularly back to the 2019, the Shanghai Student Creativity Cultivation Project was launched, and the two districts of Shanghai named Jiading and Pudong were chosen as the two pilot districts to develop the creative education curricula based on their original characteristics, just that Bill just has mentioned, Jiading. And so now 4 years have passed, and it's a good time for us to briefly summarize what we have done and see how we can do better. So first, for the project implementation in Jiading district, so a comprehensive curricular system named the Engine is developed based on the two regional characteristics of Jiading. The first is humanities, as it has a history of over 1,000 years. And the second characteristic is the science and technology, as it has a very well-developed car industry that many car companies and factories are based there, including the Volkswagen Group. So the name of the engine came from our purpose to take the cultivation of students' creativity as the engine for industrial, cultural, and societal and individual development of this region. So on the right side of the slide, you can see a compass of the engine curricular system, Bill has just mentioned, which represent a top-level design for its creative education. Such a design is to address the one major challenge in creative education in China, which we call activity mosaic, meaning that the creative education activities in some schools may seem abundant, but they are basically spontaneous, chaotic, and out of order, so which cannot systematically improve students' creativity and the critical thinking abilities, including like the problem awareness, the explorative spirit, practical spirit, cooperative consciousness, and grit. So therefore, the engine curricula integrate the two regional characteristics and set up eight themes of the curricula. For instance, like the City of Cars, the Innovation Center, Smart Hub, historically famous city, etc. So, and the policy to implement this design is called One School, One Theme. So each school develops its own school-based curriculum. And for instance, the Anting Elementary School developed the curriculum called Stepping into the Fantastic Automotive World. So, which inspires students with questions like how cars make life better and how the science and technology just can redefine the cars. So to engage students in some explorative and experiments based on this theme. And here on the right side of the slide is the flywheel model of teacher-student interaction, which shows how such creative education is concretely operated. So it is to address another challenge we call popularization difficulty, meaning that quite many students, they want to be creative. They want to create, but they don't know how to do so. So the teachers play really important roles who are supposed to stimulate students' interest and curiosity with driving questions, such as how to maintain the performance of electric car battery in low temperature. And then they activate students' mindsets to let them imagine the different possible ways to solve the problem, and then encourage them to act on their plans or hypotheses. And after all this, ask the students to reflect on the whole process. And moreover, the visualized the domain thinking tools are also utilized to make the whole process easier. And teachers are especially trained to serve as facilitators, organizers, companions, and appraisers for the students. So like the picture showed, the kids in the photo seemed quite happy for their creation, which is partly because they are frequently praised by the teacher for their creative progress or achievement. And moreover, another challenge lies in the evaluation issue, which is called the assessment black box, meaning that in creativity education, we normally evaluate students based on the outcomes rather than the process or other aspects of their creativity. Therefore, the instructing, learning, and evaluating integrative evaluation framework was constructed to evaluate students in a more comprehensive way. So for instance, the curriculum named the People and Events in the Science and the Technology History curriculum in this school. So 4 aspects of students' creative performance are evaluated, including their subjective growth, meaning that their ability to creatively think and solve problems, and the environment creation, indicating students' acceptance of different viewpoints, their attitude toward difficulties and the external environment, and also about the learning methods and the learning tools they used in their creative process and activities. So that's about the Jiading's case. And similarly, in Pudong, a comprehensive curricular system named Creative Education is developed based on its 4 regional characteristics, which are the Financial Center, Trade Center, Shipping Center, and the Science and Innovation Center of Shanghai, and even the East China area. So within the system, 4 thematic curricular leagues were established, which are the financial creation, shipping creation, scientific creation, and cultural creation league. So in each league consists of 4 to 14 schools, primary schools and secondary schools. And normally, the leading school in each league, they will develop its own curricular, and which is learned by other schools in the league and developed in their own way, so as to leverage the autonomy and creativity of each school. So ensuring the experiences of the creative education is emphasized within and across the leagues. So the book series introducing each thematic curriculum are published, and conferences are held to exchange some experiences, and the drama shows of cultural creation are organized. Okay, so despite the progress we have achieved, there are still some challenges of implementing creative education in China, lying in the way toward our goal to achieve the education modernization. So one challenge is about the division and the fragmentation of knowledge learned by students, especially given that the Chinese education system is still basically exam-oriented and knowledge-based. So that is also why it's still difficult to integrate the creative curriculum with the subject curriculum in China. And the second second challenge is that the Chinese teachers' professional literacy for creative education is still weak and needs improvement in general. So our professional training for teachers in terms of the creative education still left behind, but the reforms are on the way. And the third challenge is that the creativity assessment issues. And as we are still exploring more effective and efficient ways to measure students' creativity and critical thinking. And we'd like to learn more experience from other countries or international organizations like OECD. So that's all for my introduction, and thanks a lot for listening. And I look forward to all your feedback and suggestions. Thank you.
Thanks, Wei Jun. I've had the privilege of actually giving some feedback to some of those projects, and one of the things that is apparent is there's a real development in understanding and kind of the work textualized for teachers in place. So the car-based work in that town that builds cars is a really, I think, important part of how they're thinking about learning, that it is actually in place. So it's really exciting work, and thank you for bringing it to us so clearly. So Richard Dunn founded the Harmony Project after developing the Harmony approach to learning in his previous role as head teacher. The approach brings together subject-specific skills and knowledge around projects or inquiries of learning that take learning beyond the classroom and apply it to the real world. I'm really looking forward to hearing about Richard's work, because it is really about how you contextualise, how you understand big problems in local ways. So welcome, Richard.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Great to be here. So yes, I want to talk to you today about this word harmony, and in a moment I'll explain that. But just to set the scene, these are some images of our world in recent months, and we're living in troubled times, aren't we? And then we factor in wars and other human aspects of that. There's lots for us and our young people to be concerned about. So in that context, I was, as you've just heard, a head teacher for 18 years of a state primary school in England, and really wanted to look at how to bring together the standards agenda with something that was really focused on sustainability, putting sustainability and indeed nature at the heart of learning. So harmony is a Greek word. It means joined together or connected. This is how life is. And when we look at things through the lens of harmony, we understand things in relationship, we understand how things work together, be it a system, an ecosystem, or a community of people. Harmony also has this lovely sense of balance. So when we are in harmony, we are living in balance, whether that's individually, collectively, and it's how nature works. So when we look to the world around us, the world of nature, we see, for the most part, and most of the time, we see systems that are in balance, dynamically working together. So the thing that interested me in this work was how to bring together the subject skills and knowledge, the curriculum, around purposeful inquiry-based projects that really gave lots of opportunity to think creatively around how to live sustainably and how to live well. So I'll just take you through these principles very briefly today to give you a sense of how they provide a framework and a guide for a way of learning. So the first principle is this principle of interdependence. This is one project. We are Antarctica. How are we Antarctica? Why are we Antarctica? What does that mean? Everything is connected. So there's an example of a project of learning with an inquiry question, a harmony principle, and a sustainability action. The journey of learning is based on weekly guiding questions, and at the end we asked the children how they wanted to capture the essence of Antarctica climate change and energy use in a meaningful way, and they wanted to create an ice sculpture that of course melted within days. They really understood climate change by watching their beautiful penguin melt in front of their eyes. So the other part of that learning was to then say, okay, let's look at climate change in terms of our school, in terms of our energy use and what we can do to change that. Let's think creatively around what we can do differently. So if every school in the world had energy monitoring systems that enabled children, students to look at their energy use every day and to start thinking about how they can change that, they will save money, reduce CO2, and the key was to give them an incentive to say, if you do this, we will reward you, and that money can go to things that you want to use. I was in a school last week. They are using over 1,000 kilowatt hours of energy a day in their school. It's a huge amount of money, and they had no idea until they had a system like this. Bees are brilliant for teaching interdependence. When children learn from bees, they see how they work together, how they're part of an ecosystem. It's a great message for teaching us. How do we work well together? What do we do to ensure we're successful as a team? This is a project in Costa Rica, children learning about mangroves and mangrove ecosystems protecting their coastal regions. And these children in Costa Rica shared this learning with children in China, where a lot of those mangroves have gone. And they were saying how important they are and why they need to be sustained. So a lovely application of creative thinking to a local context. So if we build this understanding around energy and climate change year on year, this is through the primary phase, through projects of learning, developing skills and expertise, they will become leaders of a sustainable way of working. Second principle is this idea of cycles. We are all thinking now about circular economies. Our children need to learn how to think in cycles. This is a project in the Maldives. These children were really worried about the amount of waste and litter and pollution on their beaches. So we asked them to think about nature working in cycles. Why is this system not working, and what do they want to do about it? Interestingly, the problem were their parents, who were throwing things off the boat into the sea, and it was washing up on their beaches. So a very powerful message back into their communities. These children measuring food waste every day, recycling that food waste as compost and feeding it back into the growing areas in the school grounds, really understanding cyclical systems. So as I mentioned just now, cycles, circular economies, there's an amazing organization doing work on circular bioeconomies. This is the future, it has to be, and therefore our children need mindsets of cycles. We're increasingly aware of the diversity of one another, of neurodiversity, of the ways of seeing. We heard earlier from Bill about perspectives on things and seeing things in different ways. So we know the future needs to embrace this idea of diversity. It creates resilient systems. This is a project also in Costa Rica where a young man decided he wanted to recreate the rainforest, the dry rainforest there. And this has taken 40 years. And it's a wonderful example. These children right now in Assam in India have realized that their linear processes that their parents are working on to clear fell their own forest is not working. So they want to bring the forest back, gathering seeds, replanting it. That's their vision of a circular economy of practice of diversity. And these two local projects where I am, on the left, children recreating or creating wildflower meadows, and then looking in their community at how they can bring wildflower meadows back into a local car park to enhance it and make it more beautiful. So we're in a biodiversity crisis right now. In the Anthropocene, we see extinction happening all the time. We have to bring biodiversity back, and our children need to be part of that, year on year, restoring and regenerating the biodiversity of our place. This principle of adaptation is fascinating, isn't it? What a remarkable creature this gecko is, able to stick onto the side of a tree, and beautiful, efficient designs based on biomimicry is an amazing thing. We work closely with, you may know this organization, Design for Change in India. They have their global conference next week in Ahmedabad. They have a beautiful 4-step process: feel, imagine, do, share. Feel what bothers you, imagine what you can do it, and share your story. So what a lovely way for children to just think about projects of change for the future. A lot of young people around the world are asking for their future to be part of their learning. They don't want to learn so much about history. It's important. They want to think about their future. So how can we bring that into their learning? So we give them opportunities to design and create for a better way of life. These girls are in a school outside a township in South Africa. Their learning was very classroom-based, very boring, plain classroom walls, nothing to bring vitality into their learning, and their results were really poor. So we've been working with them to balance the core learning with the applied learning, to take the learning beyond the classroom. And their shining eyes and their smiling faces tell a story of happiness in learning, being healthy and happy in what they do. We asked these children, 11-year-olds, to design a future, and what were the features of that future as leaders for a sustainable way of life. And these are the things they said. It's a great blueprint from 11-year-olds for a way of life. And if we ticked all those boxes, we would be doing really well. Importantly, they all wanted to grow as leaders. We know that health in our processes and in our outcomes is essential now. We have to live healthy lives individually, collectively, and in relationship to the natural world. Areas like food and farming have to change to become more biological, less industrial. This is the way we need to go. So my final message is this: in all our creative activity, where do we find time to be still and to restore our creative spirit? There's some fascinating research around the world which teaches us that when we take moments of quiet, of stillness, like this beautiful girl in Ladakh in India, we will be even more creative and successful in our work. So we've talked already today from Bill about assessments and how assessment informs learning. If we align assessment with what I would call great works, purposeful outcomes of what we do in lots of different ways, every half term, every year, building a portfolio of learning and success and celebration, what an amazing way of learning that would create. So, there we go. Harmony Project, putting sustainability and nature at the heart of learning and asking our children to creatively think about a sustainable future. Thank you very much.
Richard, what I love about that work is how it articulates with critical hope. It's not kind of, empty hope that, something might get better someday for some reason. It's really focused on how our young people can be empowered and engaged and have the skills to engage with that, with the big problems. And so it's very exciting to see that work in action. We're going to ask you to now contribute, to ask questions of our panel. As you can see, we've had a really diverse panel that's covered some fantastically huge ideas. But I'm sure you've got questions about some of those ideas. So if you do have questions, the thing to do is to put your name kind of plate, badge, whatever it's called, up like that, so we can take some of those questions. And then have a bit of a discussion about the kinds of things that we've been talking about today. So anybody want to open the batting for us today with a question? Excellent. Off you go.
Thank you very much for sharing these really inspirational examples, but how do you take some of these really engaging activities to, say, inner city schools in New York, where you couldn't just step out into an island or a jungle? What do you do then?
Is that a question for me or anyone? Yeah. If I start very briefly, it's a really interesting question and one that we're exploring all the time. How do you make this kind of learning work in lots of different environments and lots of different contexts? I think one of the things that we're interested in is how you create nature connection, particularly in urban environments. London is a national park. London has amazing parks and allotment areas and so on. So it's about finding opportunities to bring in partners in learning to support that process. It is possible. I mean, we're doing some work in some of the most inner parts of London in very built-up areas. And it's about finding those opportunities to do that. But good question.
Oh, yeah, so I totally agree that the education that invites the nature, we build up connection with nature is very important, and we can learn from nature and be more creative in that way. So, and I agree that even in the urban areas, we have some natural sites or parks or areas that we can have a closer connection with nature. But one thing I want to emphasize, especially in China, is that schools are willing to do so, but their concern is that the parents would be very anxious if the kids are taken out of the school and they have some accidents and the school would be in trouble. So I think there should be some consensus between the schools and the families that they have confidence that to ensure the security of the students, they get into the nature and have some more exploration in those areas. So I think we are going to form better consensus on this. Yeah, thank you.
I can say that we had the same experience in our project, that we try to compare the activities, that how they are delivered in Norway and in Hungary. And the environment and the nature is completely different. So you can imagine that the Norway schools are in a forest environment, for example, and we used to work in urban settings. I would say that the right example is that in an urban setting we made very small steps first, like for children to get out of the classroom was really important, so we tried to use the space in different ways, and not the nature for us meant also to use the all places of the school, for example, and the schoolyard and a neighborhood, and go out. But in Norway, to go out from the classroom, it meant to go to the forest or go to the nature. So I can say that it is really effective in both types of environments. So I think that in big cities, all these types of things are feasible. So the steps are different a bit, but it is absolutely valid in urban and in smaller environments as well.
We've got two questions over there, so we might take both of those questions, then invite the panel to respond to both of them. So let's.
Thank you so much. So I really appreciate the interventions of all of you. My congratulations. But my question is specific for Daniel. Daniel, please, can you talk me a little bit about the POCI-C app, and what is the next challenge and the next opportunities that you have in your hands? That's my question. Many thanks.
Thanks. My question really is especially for Szilvia, but I'm interested in the whole panel's view. But Szilvia, you mentioned the difference in language development within the classrooms. And was that something that you noticed in relation to children's use of language together, or a difference in the type of language between the adults and the children in the class?
First of all, thank you for the question. Yeah, it's actually exciting. So I think challenge is a good word in a positive way. Yeah, I'll separate it in both ways. So the challenge really is how the AI aspect of the app is turning the prompts into something that's usable. And effectively, we're working through an iterative process at the moment where, you know, we're using a similar model to a ChatGPT. And actually, our colleague who's sitting here from Shanghai Open University, Qing is helping us with that project. And we're effectively trying different ways and seeing what's coming out. So at the moment, it's all about iteration. That's the challenge. How usable is it? How applicable is it in different environments? I'm based in Shanghai, and so we also have a language challenge as well between the coding. Then the opportunities for the app, I think, are huge. The database I think, is relatively simple and can provide a large amount of inspiration instantaneously. So I think that's a great opportunity, is just to develop a platform for instant inspiration to see what people are doing around the world. Often I think, you know, Twinkle's a really good example of a website where if you go and see what somebody else is doing, it's really easy to then come up with ideas after that. So actually our opportunities, I think, are twofold. One is if we can get the iteration of the AI correct, then that's a really big opportunity basically to take away a lot of the headaches of teachers in developing materials that can be used in creative aspects. And then the second is just to build a database that's attractive and usable enough to then provide that inspiration for as many people as possible.
Hillary. Sorry, we need to deal with the second question.
Yes.
First question.
So the answer for your question, Sophie, is that we used to work with highly disadvantaged children whose language skills were really restricted in the beginning of the project. And after that, we realized after 1 year that we, by creativity activities which we delivered in order to support the executive functions of the brain of these children, we also supported the development of their creativity, and they were able to have a kind of language concepts as well. So they were able to talk about what creativity means for them. For example, their structure of language was much more detailed, and when we made interviews with these children and also the children from the same age of the pilot group, there were huge differences in language usage, in individual language usage, and also in group works. So
now Hilary.
Thank you. I've been really impressed by the variety of projects that we've heard about today, so many congratulations to the people who have been working on them. I've also been thinking about the diversity of different values and approaches, and for example, we've heard about projects that are very much grounded in economic growth and development, thinking, for example, about cars and how they make our lives so much easier, and also projects around the loss of biodiversity and climate change and so on. I wonder whether whether the structures and tools that are being developed are agnostic about values, and whether it's about approach and ways of doing things rather than the content, or trying to sort of constrain how these approaches might be used, or the extent to which there's a vision of a shared future that we might be working towards, and therefore whether there's any view about how these approaches might be used. I mean, at an extreme, obviously not here, but creativity type projects could be put to use of populist or extreme right-wing governments. There's nothing in the projects themselves which means that couldn't happen. And so I just wonder, what are with the people who are further down the road with this, what are your reflections about it, and what conclusions have you come to?
It's a really good question, and when you were saying that, I was just thinking I was on a farm yesterday and thinking about, what's the future of food and farming, and what's the common language and the goal for that in lots of different places, in lots of different contexts. And I suppose it's the same, isn't it, with education? What we've talked about, individual potential, individual talents, interests, areas of learning. And then you put that into a community context, and then you put that into a sort of wider world nature context, and so on. So if we were all agreed that this is where we want to go, this is how we want our future to be at those three levels, then the diversity of approaches and ways of doing it will be the richness of that journey. But I think it probably is looking at those three elements. When we did that leadership in sustainability, the first day was on what do I need to be well, what does my team need to be well, and what does the world need to be well. And it was fascinating seeing them take that journey and to really identify and articulate that. Yeah.
And just a short answer that we always try to follow the idea that the school is not an island, and we try to embed all our projects into the local community, and we believe in somehow to reach a kind of amount of people who can make change. And I deeply believe in children's power. So I see that when we can make children to change things and we rely on their ideas, then it somehow affects their parents and also the neighborhood of them. So we try to give power to children and to follow them in this type of approach.
I also really appreciate this question. And my point is that I think the value of creativity or creation can be diversified in the different cultures, different countries, and we see from different levels, from national level, from the community level, from individual level, the creativity, the value of creativity is diversified. But one thing that we need to be ensured that the creativity should be for good purposes, for positive outcomes, rather than for destructive things. So the value guidance for the cultivation of creativity is very important. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I don't know about you, but I found this a fascinating session, which I promised would talk about some of the how. And I think we've heard three really distinct and fascinating approaches to the how, which is really exciting. We're going to talk a minute about more of the how, which is going to come up in the next session, and Dan's going to take us through what's going to happen there. But before we do that, could you please thank our marvellous panel?